Good morning, late morning. How are you, Michael? I was saying before, but I'll say it just for the audience. You're looking really spiffy today. I think I used the word dapper.
I will take dapper. I'll take spiffy. I'll take anything you want. Thank you, Michael Kurtanik, Macintosh Realtors. I just felt like getting dressed up today. I had something going on at the brokerage, so just wanted to look good and set myself apart from my colleagues. How's that?
Great. Looking smart and acting smart. That's what we're doing here. So that's great.
Well, if only I was smart. 2 out of 3 ain't bad though.
We're smart because we have common sense. So Laura Fournier, Nations Lending, bringing you the part two of our conversation about budgeting and just bringing some mechanics to that today and other great information. So I'm going to jump in with some screen share and we'll go from there.
This is good because I understand you have some statistics for us, and I'm a stats geek, so I'm really excited to see what you have today.
Let me switch screens because I kind of put things out of order, so I might be moving the screen quite a bit today. I didn't get a chance to reorganize things. So anyways, but we're going to make it work because that's what we do. So we talked the other week about budgeting and why to budget, and just the best reason to budget is because you want to be the master of your money. You want to be the coach, the mentor, the director, whatever, the leader of your money. You're working hard for it, so you want to be the one that's telling it where to go instead of having that question mark over your head following you around going, where did it go? Where did it go? So you want to direct it and tell it where to go. And these are some scary facts. And I'm just read them off the screen, but 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And we're feeling that really hard now with inflation numbers and the cost of everything having really jumped up over the last year. So I don't know, that stat might even be a little bit more. They also say that 80% of Americans have at least 4 credit cards. I see credit reports every day, and most people have more than that. The ones I'm seeing. There's almost 14 trillion. Look at that number. Like, you really have to kind of like soak in that number. That's a lot of zeros. That's $14 trillion in consumer debt. It's such a big number that you almost can't even wrap your brain around it. We're using 33% of our income towards paying creditors, which leaves very, very little for housing, if you think about that. Because the maximum, for the most part, debt to income ratio on a home loan is 50%. If you're using 33 of it, that doesn't leave much for a housing payment, which is bad news for the real estate world, right?
Yeah, well, it all comes down to, for us, from our perspective, is first get the financing. And however the chips fall, the chips fall, you know. I'm not one that will show properties before I get a pre-approval in hand, or if it's a cash buyer, I want proof of funds first, because my joke is that I am not a chauffeur, Laura. I don't take people around to houses. And that's where you come in. Let's figure this thing out up front. And then if somebody needs to like tidy things up with you, Laura, then so be it. I can wait 30, 60, 90, 120 days, but better to do this up front before, or when people first meet with me, but definitely before we look at a house.
100% agreement. We have to get that done first. So 13% of Americans expect to be in debt for the rest of their life. Oh my goodness. So that's really just sad.
Mhm.
Um, 413 billion in serious delinquencies. So that's people that are behind on their payment. That's a big number. The average household has $16,000 in credit card debt. And some, 'cause since you're talking about an average, that means a lot of people have way more than that. And on average, it takes 18 years to pay off your credit card. Yikes. Wow.
Wow, yeah. And when you factor in like the interest rate, whatever the interest rate is, over time accumulates, um, it's just mind-boggling how cost exorbitant it is when one doesn't pay off their credit cards each month or within a couple months, you know?
Yeah. So if you're paying the minimum payment, you can expect it's gonna take like that 18 years to pay off that debt. And I think that's a really good thing. Keep that number in mind, everybody, because do you really need what you're buying?
Right.
Do
That's a
you
good
really
point.
need it?
Yeah.
Because if you know it was going to take you 18 years to pay off that credit card, would you buy it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's a good number to scare all of us into really, really, really thinking a little bit harder about why we're buying whatever it is we're buying. And, one of the reasons why we buy things is because we are marketed to every day, all day long.
Mhm.
Everywhere you go, you're getting hit with marketing to buy, buy, buy.
Yeah, and I'll add, Laura, too, there is one thing that I'm willing to keep and hang on to for 18 years, and that's my Pez dispensers up here.
There you go. But I
I,
think that's, for the most part, that might be somewhat of a inexpensive. Like,
oh, it
what's the
is. Of
most
course it is.
expensive Pez dispenser?
Well, in the black market, people have paid 15,000 dollars for a Pez dispenser. Um,
Really?
yeah, but these are like $1.99, $2.99, and I don't use a credit card for that.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah, yeah,
I
I
did
get
see
them
a
on sale.
customer that had 25 or 31.99 expenditures, and it
Yeah,
turned out their kid had her credit card hooked up to one of those gaming things.
oh yeah, yeah, where
So
you
he
have
was
to
buying
pay to
little
like
tokens and
get
stuff.
to the another level. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
watch
crazy.
out for that.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into some of the mechanics of this. And where is that other form? So you're going to use a budgeting form. We've kind of talked about that a little bit last
Mhm.
time, but you're going to have to know how much income you make, just to review real quick, and what your expenses are, but also, um, you know, subscriptions, gifts, entertainment, eating out. So a couple good apps to use is Quicken. They have a new app for home budgeting called, I think it's called Simplify. If you just Google Quicken, that will come up. Dave Ramsey has a really good form. He has a free version and then one that has a monthly subscription. So these are all good forms to use to actually establish your budget. And since I went out of order, I couldn't find it. So if you obviously want to do charity, you want to put in something for savings. And these things, like if you tithe to your church, you would put
Mhm.
this in up front. Then your household, if you pay rent or you have your mortgage, your utilities, food, some allowance for clothing, transportation. These are considered the four walls of your main budget: your house, your utilities, your food, transportation, and clothing. Those are things that you have to have. So you got to eat, you have to have shelter, we have to wear clothes as human beings, and we need transportation. Whether you're taking mass transit, you have to have an, budget item for that, or if you got a car. But
Mhm.
other than that, pretty much everything else is something you want, not necessarily something you need. And that's where it really gets hard in people's, spending plan.
Right. And so on this point, Laura, if a viewer would like maybe a copy of this, could you share it, or is this proprietary?
No, I can share it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
Absolutely. But they can use those apps, Quicken or the Dave Ramsey. You can just Google that
yeah,
and you can there's probably other apps out there, but those are the ones that I've used in the past. So
right.
anything that falls out of food, shelter, utilities, transportation, you really have to be ready to maybe slash and burn those categories, because after you subtract out your expenses, if you are in the red, if you have a negative, like you're spending more than you're making, you have to have the conversation about what you can cut out of your budget.
Good, good. I want
And
to, you had said something earlier about setting up an emergency fund,
mhm.
and seeding it with, say, $1,000 to start. What's an emergency? How do you define an emergency?
No, that is a very good question, because a lot of us want to think that just about anything that happens is an emergency. But it's funny because there are things that just aren't emergencies that we call emergencies. And that, like Christmas, birthdays, these are things we know. We know when somebody's birthday is. We know Christmas is the same time, or Hanukkah, or whatever your holiday is. Um, Not emergencies. You should be setting aside money for car repairs, because we know that when we own a car, it's going to need repairs and maintenance. So that's not really technically an emergency. An emergency would be maybe a car accident could be an emergency. Or you have a toothache and all of a sudden you need a root canal. That could be an emergency. Or my friend had a appendicitis and she had to have emergency surgery because she had to have her appendix. So that was emergency. Those are things that really we don't know that it's going to happen. But
Right.
a lot of people have emergencies because they're not actually planning for what they know is going to happen. There's no plan for it. Like, you have to maintenance your house. When your kids are having their birthdays. That you're going to eventually need new tires for your car. So these are things that we actually have to plan for. So it's not really an emergency. So you want to have set aside funds to start that emergency fund so that you're not hitting your credit card when these things happen. And the initial emergency fund is just $1,000. So it's a good idea before you even start paying off credit card debt to put $1,000 into a savings account, so that if you do get a flat tire or something, you can just pay for it with cash and you're
Okay.
not hitting that credit card anymore. Now, we are going to take steps further down to actually build that fund even higher, but just to give us a little bit of cushion, starting with $1,000 is the best way to go.
And
So
and you define cash also as a debit card, right? Because it just debits automatically from that, right? Or is
yes,
cash different than debit?
yes, it can be, as long as it's easy to get to and you're not going to have any fees. Like, you wouldn't put your emergency fund in a certificate of deposit or somewhere where it's locked up.
Yeah.
But you could have cash in your little home safe. You could have it in your savings or checking account where you can easily access it, but you don't want to be spending that unless one of these occurrences happen where you need to use it. And then as soon as you use it, you want to start building it back up. so that you always have that $1,000 handy. And most households don't even have $1,000 saved up. So if you reach that point, you get a little check mark because you're building some safety in for your family. The second thing to do in your new budgeting plan is to pay off your consumer debt. And this is really hard. This is really hard. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. You want to obviously quit using your credit cards. So have you ever done that before with your household, Michael? Is
Oh,
quit
sure.
using your
Oh,
credit card?
absolutely. Especially when I see that the interest rates were up 18, 21% and stuff. Absolutely.
And a lot of people are getting notices that their credit card interest rates are going up with what's going on in the economy. So you want to take your credit cards out of your wallet, out of your purse, and hopefully if you're brave enough, you'll cut them up.
Mhm.
Now that's a
Absolutely.
brave, bold move. You can lock them up in your little home safe. I've had people put them in a Tupperware with water and freeze them so they can't get to them very easily.
That's funny.
But the idea is that you're not going to carry them around, because if you're not carrying them around, then you don't, use them. You can bring your debit card or you can bring your cash. Because you really want to remove that temptation. So, and the first thing to do is once you remove the temptation and you have the family agreement that you're not using credit cards anymore, you're going to see, this lady's brave. She's cutting it up. You're going to start paying off the smallest credit card first.
Yep.
So you list your credit from smallest to largest. I would start with credit cards, and then you're going to go to maybe your car loans, but really we're talking about credit cards mostly today. So if your smallest credit card has a $500 balance and your minimum is $25 a month, you're going to pay minimum on every other credit card and then throw as much money as you have available towards that $500 credit card.
Excellent.
And maybe you're going to ask your boss if you can work overtime.
Yep.
And throw all your overtime money towards that credit card. If you have a budget for $500 for your groceries and you only spend $450 that month, use that extra $50 towards that credit card. So you're going to do everything you possibly can to get as much money as fast as possible to pay off that first credit card. And then once that's paid off, you're going to work on credit card number 2. And this had a $1,200 balance with a $60 a month payment. So you're going to take the $60 plus the $25, because credit card number 1 is paid off, and you're going to make more than the minimum payment. And if you have extra money in your budget, you're going to throw that at it too. And this is how we start paying off our credit cards, because once you get 2 paid off, you use the 25 plus the 60 plus the 75 minimum, all towards credit card number 3. And you would be surprised that when you really focus on this, and maybe you worked a little overtime, maybe you got a full second job, that you put everything towards those credit cards. And of course you have your $1,000. So if little something happens, you had a flat tire or something, you didn't use your credit card because this time you had that money from your savings account. So you just keep going like this until you get rid of all of your credit cards. Then, of course, you can start paying off car loans and the dreaded student loans too. A lot of people have big student loan debt.
Yeah, and a lot of people are have like they took out loans in different years for colleges. And is there a way to like consolidate all of those student loans like for college and stuff, or do you just have to pay them separate?
Most of the time, after people graduate, they'll consolidate. They have direct student loans and indirect student student loans, depending on who backed them. There's some little nuances there, but for the most part, you can consolidate almost all of your student loans together into one payment. Now, on your credit report, it lists them all out separately, but your payment is actually consolidated, like to Sally Mae or Navient or Department of Education. Those are the ones I see the most on credit reports. So yeah, you do want to consolidate your student loans. And there's a process for that. There's also income-based repayment plans that you can apply for now that can reduce your monthly payment to, that you're required to pay each month based on how much income you're earning. And there's paperwork you have to submit every year for that. But that can be worth it, especially if you need to focus on paying off your credit card debt, is to get your student loans in that IBR payment. And then after you're out of consumer debt, then start paying off your student loan debt.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And
this is good information, Laura. I think this is great for any of the viewers out there who are looking for some guidance and seeing what they need to do to make sure that their household budget is one that is manageable, where you can keep on swimming and not tread water.
Right. And it takes quite a bit of time. It takes quite a bit of effort. The best thing to do is to focus on how you can increase your income. And maybe that is taking a part-time job or working overtime. Maybe, you can rent out a room in your basement, or there's all sorts of creative ways that people can bring in additional income. But you have to decide, if you're married, if that everybody's working together in this effort with moving forward. The next step in the budgeting process after you're out of your consumer debt is to really build up that savings account so that you have 6 months of your total budget. So if it takes $5,000 a month to do everything in your household, 6 times that is going to be $30,000. So, and that's going to take some time, but these are things that people literally accomplish when they put their minds to it. So it's super important to really sit down with this. I am, and I didn't change my name there, but if anybody wants some help with, doing the budgeting process, or you need more detail, because there's so many nooks and crannies to the actual budgeting that, it's more than enough, even a second 15-minute conversation. But this gives you some ideas on where to start, how to have some conversation with your spouse, your partner, because we all, in our households, we don't learn these things. We kind of just pick it up from, what we experience as kids. And so it can be a very difficult conversation. And, usually one person in the household is a spender, where the other person is more of a saver.
Yep, absolutely. Opposites attract.
Because my husband is definitely, he's like the squirrel right in the fall. He's always hiding some, nuts all over the, place. And I'm grateful for that. He's really good at that. And I'm a little bit more of a spender, but I do have a saving side. I'm a little bit more in the middle. Being the middle child, I do some spending and I do savings, but he's a little bit more of a saver, although he has his things that he likes to have too. So how about in your household?
I'm more of a spender, absolutely. Yeah, you can see from the Pez.
So do you have a conversation about budgeting or how your money is going to be spent?
Sure, absolutely. And I recommend that every viewer has that too in the house. It could be painful, but you can always just make it fun. Just get a bottle of wine and a couple glasses and just sit by the fire and just talk it out. Think about your plans and then just have the conversation and just look at revenue and there you go. With revenue and look at expenses and you want more revenue than expenses and you want to save and save and save because last thing you want to do when you're 70 or 75 is to have to keep on working just to maintain what you want to do. So absolutely.
And when you have that savings, when you have that buffer, then emergencies turn into inconveniences.
Correct. Absolutely.
You're never happy that, your engine on your car blew up. But if you have some money, you're okay. You're like, it was a terrible thing to happen. You didn't want it, but you still can, either get it fixed or you can, afford to buy maybe a new used car or a new car that's, moderately priced, but you're not going to, be decimated by or start going crazy. Or if your hot water heater goes, you don't have to hit the credit card. You just take it out of your household budget for that line item. So it's just really important to think about what you're spending. Do you really need it? Because if it's not housing, if it's not food, if it's not transportation, and it's not your utilities, it's a need, it's a want, not a need. And wants, sometimes you have to plan for them. I'm all for wanting things, but plan for how you're going to purchase them without blowing out your budget. Maybe you're not going to get whatever it is you want for 3 months because that's how long it's going to take you to save to buy it. But if
and who knows, by
don't
that
stop,
time, by the time the 3 months are done, you may not have that desire anymore.
yeah, that is a great point. That has happened so many times to me. Like I really wanted something. I was like, no, I got to think about it. And after a couple of days, I'm like,
Yeah.
So that's a
But
great point.
I think this is great information, Laura. Thank you so much for sharing. And if viewers want more information, how can they access it?
Just send me a text budget to 301-674-7716 and I'll send you more information. Or you can just give me a call and we can set up a time to have a more thorough conversation so that we can help you budget and get ready to buy a house or move up and get more of your dream house. So thanks, everybody. I hope this was helpful.
It sure was. Thanks. And please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Michael Kurtianek, Macintosh Realtors. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you. I will see you in just a minute on the other line.